Before the passing away of the Buddha, the Buddha gave this teaching to one of his disciples. The Buddha said, for the sake of another's benefit, however great it may be, do not neglect one's own moral benefit. Clearly perceiving one's own benefit, one should make every effort to attain it. So I believe all of you have been performing various meritorious deeds, such as giving dana to the Sangha, or giving your time to organize retreats, raising funds to print Dharma books, and so on. So you are doing this not only for the benefit of another, but actually you also accumulate merits, merits that will support your progress in the spiritual training. But here the Buddha say, do not neglect one's own moral benefits. So what is the significance of one's own benefit? Is it one's own benefit in accordance with the teachings of Buddha? Is to attain enlightenment, in order to be free from samsara, or the cycle of birth and death. So even though you have been performing various meritorious deeds, but as long as you do not meditate, or especially one doesn't practice Satipatthana Vipassana Bhavana, Satipatthana Vipassana meditation, then one can never realize one's own benefit. So I believe you have understood well the teachings of the Buddha. That's why you are very keen to join intensive practice or intensive retreat on the practice of mindfulness meditation or Vipassana meditation. As you know, there are three aspects of Saddharma. Saddharma means true Dharma. The three aspects of Saddharma are pariyatti. Pariyatti means to learn or to study the teachings of Buddha by listening from the teachers, or by reading the Dharma book. The second aspect is patipatti, or practice. So here practice, in brief, refers to the threefold trainings in the teaching. The threefold trainings are training in virtue or morality, training in concentration or calmness, and training in wisdom or panya in Pali. And the third aspect is a pativeda, or realizations. Realization means one has realized or has attained the supramountain path, and the fruitions and Nibbana. So the practice is very important. The aspect of practice is very important. You in the practice of Vipassana meditation, though sometimes the yogis may not have much knowledge in the scriptures, but as long as they know the practice, then they shall be able to attain the third aspect of the Saddharma, this realization of Pativeda. So Dharma here, during the practice of mindfulness meditation, Vipassana meditation, refer to one's own mental and physical phenomena. So if you know the way how to be mindful of your own mind, or in other words, various mental states or mental processes, and physical phenomena, such as movements or heat, hardness, and so on. In fact, practicing to realize the Dharma. So here we have to put forth effort in order to attain the third aspects of the Saddharma, these realizations, or attainment of the supramundane path and fruition knowledge and Nibbana. So no one can give you enlightenment. The Buddha only show us the way or the path to attain enlightenment. And the Buddha said, you yourself have to put forth effort or to strive, diligently, or in other words, to live a heedful life by being mindful, of whatever mental states or physical phenomena that have appear or have arisen at that present moment. So I believe almost all of you have experiences in the practice of Vipassana Bhavana. Some of you have been practicing Vipassana Bhavana for many years. So I shall explain briefly the practical aspects of Vipassana Bhavana. So this meditation is known as Satipatthana Vipassana Bhavana. The word Bhavana means mental development or mental culture, mental training. Vipassana means realization or right understanding of the true natures of mental and physical phenomena. So the word "we" refers to the three common characteristics of mental and physical phenomena. The three common characteristics are anicca, or impermanence, dukkha, or unsatisfactory, anatta, or not self, or non-self. So in order to realize the true natures of a mental and physical phenomena, then meditators have to mindful what are mental states or a physical phenomenon that has arisen or has appeared at that moment. We cannot realize the true natures of mental and physical phenomena by thinking or hearing from others or by reading the Dharma books. The Buddha will say we can only realize his teachings through direct knowledge. We have to develop direct knowledge. In other words, direct knowledge can be gained through the practice of Satipatthana, Vipassana Bhavana. In other words, this direct knowledge have to realize through one's own personal experience or direct experience by being mindful of whatever mental states or physical phenomenon or process of physical phenomenon that has arisen at that present moment. So that's why we have to practice Satipatthana meditation. In this, we have to develop mindfulness. We have to develop all the four foundations of mindfulness. As you know, the four foundations of mindfulness, in brief, mindful of body phenomena. The second foundation is mindful of feeling or sensation. The third foundation is mindful of the mind, and the fourth foundation, mindful of Dharma. So, in other words, there are various mental and physical phenomena that we have to mindful of. All these mental and physical phenomena can be found or perceived within you. It means in your own mind and body. So during the practice Vipassana Bhavana, meditators have to direct the mindfulness or the attention to their mind and body. So meditators have to develop mindfulness constantly, continuously. So during retreats, meditators have to develop mindfulness in these three aspects of practice. The first aspect is walking meditation. The second aspect is a sitting meditation. And the third aspect is mindfulness of your daily routine activities. Every session of sitting meditation should be preceded by a session of walking meditations. Walking meditation is quite beneficial and is quite helpful to the practice of mindfulness and to the progress of the practice. Meditators can develop mindfulness well during walking meditation, and they are able to carry forward their mindfulness that they have developed in the walking meditation, are able to carry forward into their sitting meditation. So most likely, they shall develop mindfulness well in their sitting meditation. So mindfulness means present moment's attention. The attention at this present moment. We can never mindful the past. We can never mindful the future. We can only mindful of the present moment. So meditators, during walking meditation, they have to mindful. For example, before they begin to walk, they have to mindful the standing postures. Be mindful and note the standing posture as it really occurs a few times. So this mental noting or labeling is not mindfulness meditation. Mental noting or labeling is like a tool, or a tool to help meditators to live mindfulness. So meditators must not mindful of the mental noting. For example, when you are mindful of your standing postures, and then you have to take note mentally. Standing. Meditators should not mindful of that mental noting. Meditators mindful what is noted by the mind. There's the standing postures. So meditators be mindful of the standing postures as it really occurs. They should not imagine the form of the postures. They should not do what they call scanning the postures. They just be mindful of standing and standing, and note it a few times. They only begin to walk left, right. So meditators have to perceive that there's an object has appeared. This object has a reason. That means meditators realize there's a movement of the foot. Then they can mindful and note it as it really occurs. So in other words, if the mindfulness is not yet well developed, or if the mindfulness is not yet attentive and precise, then meditators cannot mindful and note the movements precisely. In other words, at the beginning, right at the beginning of the movements. So sometimes meditators mindful and noted the movements a bit late. So what's been emphasized here, meditators should not purposely synchronize the mental noting with the movements. For example, sometimes meditators focus their attention at the heel, then they start to move and note left. So they think that their mindfulness is precise, but actually there's some degree of controlling the practice. The movements has not started, but meditators focus their attention at the heel, then they move and note at the same time. But in the practice mindfulness meditation, Vipassana meditation, we do not really purposely control a process of a phenomenon. in order to mindful and note it right at the beginning of starting, at the moment of starting. So meditators have to walk naturally, slowly. They slow down the pace of walking in accordance with their physical condition. And the movement is slow enough so that the mindfulness, so that meditators can develop mindfulness better and better. So meditators be mindful, left, perceiving this movements of left foot, then be mindful, no eat left. But they should keep their attention or the mindfulness or the awareness with the movements. So here, movements should be perceived, not the form of the foot. So when the process of the movements of left foot has stopped, then meditators move the right foot naturally, slowly. Then they come to realize there's movements of right foot. Then they can mindful and know it as it really occurs. So usually in the beginner retreats, meditators have to practice walking meditation, ideally 1 hour or around 1 hour. So meditators can divide that durations into 2 parts. The first part, meditators be mindful and note the movements of left and right for about 15 minutes. Then they slow down their movements so that they can mindful and note 3 processes of a step. They are lifting, pushing, dropping, lifting, pushing, dropping. So here, meditators have to put forth enough effort to perceive the movements. But as you know, at the beginner retreats, sometimes the mind can be quite restless. The mind wanders away from the object of meditation. But wandering mind or thinking minds are also objects of a Vipassana meditation. So every object, either a mental object or physical object, is equally important in these meditations. Every object or every phenomenon is an object of Vipassana meditation. In other words, when meditators have developed strong mindfulness and deep concentration, then they can realize insight knowledge. Whatever object that's being mindful and noted at a time, meditators may realize insight knowledge. Here, insight knowledge means realizing the true nature of mental physical phenomena, anicca or impermanence, dukkha or unsatisfactory, and anatta, not self. So every object is equally important. But we do emphasize the importance of mindful of the mental states. It's because meditation is mental training, mental culture or mental development. So it's more important to mindful of whatever mental state that has arisen at the time. For example, when you're mindful of your movements of the foot left, or when you're mindful of lifting movements or pushing movements, Then you realize that the mind is thinking of something. Instead of mindful the movements, the meditators have to stop the walking, but they should not mindful the stopping. They should be mindful and note that thinking mind as soon as possible. So if the mindfulness is not as sharp, sometimes meditators take note mentally, thinking, then they become aware of that mental noting. When meditators become aware of mental noting, most likely the thinking had gone, had disappeared. But meditators actually did not mindful of that process of thinking mind precisely. It's because the attention was turned towards the mental noting. So meditators cannot realize the true natures of that thinking mind. So meditators have to be careful that whenever they are mindful of the mental states or a physical phenomenon, they should make sure that the mindfulness, they keep the mindfulness following the process of the object, or the mindfulness is aware of the process of an object. So similarly, when the mindfulness is not well developed, the mindfulness of the mind sometimes is easily distracted by external phenomena such as sound or noise or some form. Form means visible object. So meditators learn to be indifferent as much as possible. In other words, external sense objects are not an objects of Vipassana meditation. But sometimes the mindfulness is distracted by external sense object. Then meditators may have to mindful and know it as it is. For example, distracted by some sound, then meditators may have to mindful note hearing during walking meditation. Actually, what's to be realized at that moment when meditators make the mental noting, hearing, what should be realized or perceived is the conscious of hearing, not the external sound. But it's not easy to perceive this hearing consciousness unless meditators have developed sharp mindfulness and deep concentration. So meditators be mindful. The basic of the walking meditation. In other words, during walking meditation, we can say that the basic objects are the standing postures, movements of the foot, and turning movement of bodies. When meditators have walked and stopped at the end of the walking path, they have to mindful standing and note it a few times, let's say between 5 to 10 times. Then they have to turn back. They may be mindful of the turning movements of body and note it as it really occurs. So we can say that these are the basic object walking meditation. But whenever there's another phenomenon much stronger or more distinct than the movements, then meditators may have to mindful of the other phenomenon. And then meditators should always give priority to the mental states. For example, thinking, planning, or sometimes meditators perceive sluggishness of the mind, or downness of the mind, and so on. So meditators are not only mindful of one object all the time. Sometimes there are other phenomena that are more distinct or stronger than the movements of the foot. Then meditators have to be mindful of the other phenomena. At the end, walking meditation is always important to walk slowly, mindfully to the place of sitting. Sit down slowly, mindfully. If meditators wish to pay homage to Buddha, they also be mindful of every process movements, such as folding the palm, bowing down, and so on. So in other words, mindfulness of mental states or mental phenomena is the first important factor to make progress in the practice of Satipatthana, Vipassana Bhavana. And the second important factor is constant and continuous mindfulness. So here we emphasize the mental factor of sati or mindfulness. When meditators are able to develop mindfulness constantly, continuously, for a longer and longer period of time, and they are able to overcome the mental hindrances and other defilements during the practice, then they shall attain a deeper and deeper concentration. So here we emphasize that meditators have to develop this mental factor of sati or mindfulness. So meditators sit down slowly, mindfully, pay homage to the Buddha, slowly, mindfully. When they want to adjust their sitting postures, they also do it slowly, mindfully, and make mental noting whenever it's possible. So at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators may not be able to perceive any strong object or distinct phenomenon. Then meditators should not purposely search for an object. So we have three basic objects of sitting meditations. So these three basic object meditation are known as Mula Kammatthana in Pali. Mula means an object or phenomenon that enable meditators to begin their mental training or mental culture. Kammatthana means an object or phenomena that enable meditators to develop or to cultivate the mind, or to develop calmness and wisdom in their mind. So if there's no distinct object, meditators have to be mindful of these three, one of the three basic objects of Mula Kammatthana. As you know, the first basic object is the movements of the abdomen. So meditators have to perceive the movements as a natural process. Meditators should not make a physical effort in order to create a more distinct movements of abdomens. They should not purposely take a deep breath in order to create a clearer process of movements. So in other words, meditators must keep their breath normal, natural, but they do not pay attention to the in-breath and out-breath. Meditators have to pay attention to the movements of the abdomen. So in other words, meditators have to put forth some mental effort to direct the attention to the abdomen in order to perceive the movements. So meditators need not have to focus their attention or the awareness on the physical abdomen. So they have to put forth enough effort to direct the mindfulness or their attention in order to perceive the movement abdomens. The meditators can perceive that there's expansion movements. The meditators be mindful and note the movements as rising. If the abdomen moves inwards, meditators can mindful and note it as falling. Sometimes meditators cannot note the movements well. For example, sometimes the process movements is short, or sometimes the process movements is quite fast, and the noting is quite slow. Then meditators cannot make any mental noting. At that time, meditators have to mindful of the short process movements or rapid process movements as it duly occurs. But sometimes meditators have some difficulties to perceive the movement clearly. Sometimes the movement is not clear at all, or sometimes the movement has stopped. When the movement has stopped, it implies that there's no object there. If the movement stops and there's no other clear phenomenon such as hardness or tightness of the abdomen, then meditators do not keep the attention there. So meditators have to be mindful of the other two basic objects. The other two basic objects of sitting meditation are the sitting postures. So meditators mindful that they are sitting, the postures remains upright. So they mindful know it as it is, sitting. Then they may have to direct their attention to one of the contacts of body. In the sitting postures, meditators shall be able to perceive various contacts of body. Contacts, for example, if you place your hand on the knee, then there's a contact of your hand with the left knee, the right hand with the knee. So we note this contact as touching. So meditators mindful and note touching. Then they pay attention to the second touching point, touching. And be mindful of sitting posture again, sitting. Be mindful of touching point, the same touching point again, the first one, touching. The second touching point, touching, and so on, until there's another stronger object. When there's a stronger object has appeared, then meditators mindful of the stronger object, the other stronger object, and note it as it really occurs. So during sitting meditation, meditators also have to be mindful of the mental state. Whenever there's a mental state, for example, thinking, planning, or sometimes feeling sleepy, and so on. When meditators can overcome mental hindrances and defilements during the practice of mindfulness meditation, then they shall be able to attain deeper and deeper concentration. And during sitting meditation, meditators may have to practice a lot of patience, especially when they experience discomfort or unpleasant body sensation, such as painful sensation, numbness, and so on. So these phenomena of painful sensation, numbness, are good objects of Vipassana meditation. Is because these objects, numbness, pain, will attract your mind. That means your attention. Definitely will catch your attention. So meditators need to be patient with this sensation and note it as it really occurs. Sometimes the painful sensation can become a cause for the arising of other mental states. For example, the feeling of impatience or dislike, desire to move or to stop the sitting meditation. So meditators should be mindful of these mental states as well. For example, there's a feeling of dislike, or then meditators have to know it as it is, dislike, and so on. So meditators cannot choose their objects of mindfulness. Although at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators may have to direct the attention or their mindfulness to one of the basic objects. But when there's another object which has appeared at the time and more distinct than the basic object, definitely that basic object will catch the attention or the mindfulness of meditators. So meditators have to be mindful of the other object. If the other object is stronger or more distinct than the basic object, but meditators have realized that their attention has gone there, then they quickly bring back their attention or awareness back to the basic object. Then they are not practicing the way of four foundation of mindfulness. So meditators should practice all the four foundation of mindfulness so that the practice will become complete and shall be able to accomplish the trainings. So at the beginning of retreats, if meditators can walk 1 hour, they also put forth effort to sit for 1 hour. But if some meditators feel that they could not sit for 1 hour, for example, on the first day of the retreats or the second day of the retreats, they should not be forcing themselves to sit for 1 hour. So meditators have to learn from their experience, but they should also develop patience. This quality of patience is another important factors in this meditation. So meditators have to learn to be patient. For example, be patient of physical discomfort. Be patient with the mind. Sometimes the mind is quite restless. Meditators always want to be focused, to be able able to focus their mind more and more on the basic object. Sometimes the mind become more restless. The meditators should be mindful of the restlessness. So at the beginning retreats, meditators may walk for 1 hour, or sometimes they sit less than an hour. But as the practice progressing, meditators shall be able to keep these two aspects of practice in balance. In thus, be able to walk 1 hour and sit for 1 hour. When meditators can practice walking meditation and mindfulness of daily activities better and better, then sometimes they can sit longer and longer. During sitting meditation, meditators have to put forth more and more mental effort into the practice. It's because during sitting meditation, the postures remains still. The only movements is the movement of abdomen, but sometimes meditators cannot perceive any movements at all. So meditators have to put forth effort to direct their mind to the object of meditation. You do not put forth effort to direct your mind to the object of meditation, then the mind will begin to wander, to think, or even fall into sleepiness. So in other words, meditators have to activate their mindfulness by directing your attention awareness to the movement of abdomen. If the movement is not clear at all, or there's no movements at all, meditators should be quick enough to direct the attention to the other two basic objects, sitting, touching, and so on. At the end of sitting meditation, it's also important to sustain the mindfulness. In other words, meditators have to change their posture slowly from walking into standing postures, walking to the path of walking meditation. Meditators have to put forth effort to carry their mindfulness from one aspect of practice to next aspect of practice, or from one activity to next activity, and so on. So besides the practicing walking and sitting meditation, the third aspect of practice is very important. That's mindful of your daily routine activities. We seldom mindful of our daily routine activities at home or at other places. Most of the time, we are quite forgetful. In other words, we do not mindful of our mind and body at home or at other places. This is because we have not yet developed the habit of mindfulness. So the mind always stay with the old habit, the old habit of mind. The old habit of untrained mind is thinking, wandering, or daydreaming, and so on. So now, meditators come to join the intensive practice. They have a good opportunity to practice mindfulness, mindfulness on their daily routine activities. So in other words, meditators have to live in the present moment. So you might have heard this, living in this present moment. Living in this present moment means meditators have to mindful of their actions, or mindful of their movements, or such as stretching of the arms, bending of the arms, chewing or during eating, you're mindful of chewing, tasting, swallowing, and so on. When you have to walk, for example, from the hall, as you walk back to the rooms or to dining hall, you have to mindful of your walking, left, right, and so on. So as some meditators are able to live in the present moment, then they shall be able to pay attention, and thus be mindful of their movements, be mindful of their mental states. So sometimes we also need to mindful of our mental states in our daily life, or outside the retreats. The mind can be quite restless, or sometimes the mind is engaged with some negative thinking or negative thoughts or emotional feeling. So it's important to be mindful of such mental states. But sometimes some do not mindful of them, but they were carried away by their own emotional feelings on negative thinking. This because they have not yet developed the habit of mindful of the mind. So meditation is about mindful of the mind. If there's no mental states, then meditators have to be mindful of their physical movements or other physical phenomena. Meditation is this mindfulness meditation is the only way to purify the mind. So that's why at the beginnings of the discourse on the four foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha said this is the only way for the purification of beings. It's because the mind of beings is tainted with all kinds of defilements, such as lobha, or greed, or dosa, hatred, delusion, moha, and so on. So during retreats, sometimes meditators also need to mindful of mind. Sometimes meditators did not realize that the mind is thinking, wandering away during the mindfulness of daily activities. Then they become unmindful of their movements or actions. So meditators also have to be mindful of the mental states when they are practicing mindfulness of daily activities. But sometimes not possible to slow down the actions much. So for the purpose of a practice, sometimes meditators cannot mindful of their daily routine activities in details. For example, when you are taking shower, you cannot slow down much. Then you have to train yourself to practice general awareness or general mindfulness. But when you are paying homage to the Buddha inside the meditation hall, you can train yourself to practice mindfulness in details, or in other words, more specific mindfulness. When you want to fold your palms, you lift up your hands one after another. For example, you lift up your left hand slowly and note it as it really occurs, lifting. Then you lift up your right hand and note it as it really occurs, lifting, lifting, lifting. Then you perceive there's a touching of the palms, touching, touching. When you lift up your folded palms, lifting, lifting. When you bow down, bowing, bowing, bowing. So, mindfulness of deities is very important to the progress of overall practice, the mindfulness. And it's easier to develop moment-to-moment mindfulness during mindfulness of daily duties. Only when meditators are able to develop moment-to-moment mindfulness better and better, then they shall be able to attain moment-to-moment concentration. If meditators are able to develop concentration from one moment to next moment, then they shall be able to attain clearer experience of moment-to-moment experience of insight. So, at the beginning of the retreats, it's more difficult to develop moment-to-moment mindfulness during sitting meditation. But meditators may be able to develop to a certain degree moment-to-moment mindfulness in their walking meditation. But among these three aspect practice, the easiest way to develop moment-to-moment mindfulness is during the practice of mindfulness of daily duties. But it's not so practical to practice moment-to-moment mindfulness in the daily activities all the time. For example, it's difficult to practice moment-to-moment mindfulness while taking shower. But when meditators pay homage to Buddha, then they can put forth effort to develop moment-to-moment mindfulness. So what's been emphasized is moment-to-moment mindfulness, because mindfulness is sati. Sati is one of the mental factors. Mindfulness is a mental process. This mental process sati is similar to other mental process. In other words, it's not everlasting. It's arising and passing away instantly. So when meditators are able to make progress in their mindfulness meditation, they also realize that the mindfulness is not a permanent mental process. This mindfulness is being conditioned by another phenomenon. When the other phenomenon have passed away, mindfulness also subject to instant passing away. So in that way, meditators shall begin to make progress when they are able to realize both processes. Both processes, in other words, one process is an object of phenomenon. The other process is a process of mindfulness or awareness. Both processes are not permanent. They are subject to arising and passing away. So this is a brief instructions on the practice of Satipatthana, Vipassana Bhavana. So in other words, the word Vipassana means the insight knowledge that realizes the true nature of mental and physical phenomena. Bhavana means mental development. So in order to develop this insight knowledge, meditators have to practice the four foundation mindfulness. Only through the practice of four foundation mindfulness, meditators shall be able to develop insight, knowledge, or wisdom. And the phenomena that meditators have to be mindful or should be taken as an object of Vipassana meditation are your own mind and body. Only by being mindful of your own mind and body processes, the meditators shall be able to develop insight, knowledge, or wisdom gradually, and then they shall be able to overcome defilements, shall be able to uproot the mental defilements if the meditators have attained the path knowledge. The ultimate aim of practicing Satipatthana Vipassana Bhavana is to purify one's own mind from all kinds of defilements and to attain enlightenment, be free from this samsara, or suffering samsara, or this cycle of birth and death. So that's why the Buddha said, for your own welfare. Though sometimes we might think for the sake of another's benefit. The Buddha said, however great it may be, do not neglect one's own moral benefit. Clearly perceiving one's own benefit, one should make every effort to attain it. So I wish all meditators shall be heedful to the teachings of Buddha. To realize the ultimate aim of following the teaching Buddha, to realize your own benefit. You have to put forth effort by yourself to develop mindfulness, concentration, and insight, knowledge, or wisdom until the attainment of the path, knowledge, fruition knowledge, and enlightenment. Then you shall realize the ultimate benefits of following teachings of the Buddha. So I wish all meditators be heedful, be mindful all the time.